Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the first edition of the Everglades Foundation Southwest Florida Speaker Series. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Nikki Dvorchak, and I'm the Director of Development and Events in Southwest Florida. If you have questions during today's presentation, please add them in the Q&A section below, and we will take audience questions at the end of the presentation. I would like to introduce you to our CEO, Eric Eichenberg. Eric has been with the foundation since 2012 and has an extensive background in policy and political experience in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. We're so happy to have Eric as the leader of our organization, and I'd like to let him share a few updates on what's going on with the foundation. Thank you.
Nikki, thank you, and good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our speaker series here in Southwest Florida. It's great to spend the afternoon with you remotely, virtually. Coming to you from my home office, so I pardon any noise that might be in the background as my 4 children are home here with me. This is an exciting day. It's an exciting opportunity to discuss a key issue, a key programmatic pillar of the Everglades Foundation, and that's education. But before we do that, I just want to briefly update you on some great progress that continues to occur as it relates to Everglades and the restoration of the Everglades. Just last week, our own Shannon Espinoz was able to appear before the United States Congress to testify on the importance of taking Lake Okeechobee water, storing, cleaning, and sending that water south down to the Everglades, to the River of Grass, under the beautiful bridges of Tamiami Trail, US 41, and fresh water flowing for the first time now in almost 100 years into Everglades National Park and ultimately down to the Florida Keys and Florida Bay. Progress and a desire that many of us have been pushing for many, many years is now becoming reality. And much of that success is based on the support that we're receiving continuously from our friends in Southwest Florida, in particular in Collier County and in Naples. We're very grateful. The Everglades is a bipartisan issue. Quite frankly, it's nonpartisan. And during these heightened times of partisanship, it's great to be able to rely upon an issue to bring us together. We're all connected through water. Water is the essence of life, and it's critically important to not only the livelihood of nearly 9 million Floridians, but also to the state as a whole. The economic success of Florida, the economic vitality of Florida relies upon natural resources and an abundant supply of clean, fresh water, something that we are very much pursuing as it relates to Everglades restoration and the desires that we're seeing both in Washington and in Tallahassee. I want to acknowledge the leadership of the governor. He committed to this issue on the second day of his administration. We're coming up next year on the 2-year anniversary of an extensive and comprehensive executive order that he outlined that calls for the construction of a reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee. Many of you have heard us talk about this reservoir before. This project will single-handedly reduce discharges to the Caloosahatchee estuary, the Caloosahatchee River, and the St. Lucie River by more than 55%. Discharges that fuel red tide, and discharges that create blue-green toxic water that unfortunately we have witnessed in recent summers. I want to thank our board of directors and our staff for their continuous work, certainly during these challenging times. We've been working remotely since March the 15th, and our staff, some of whom you'll meet this afternoon, are working tirelessly to pursue the vision and the mission of the Everglades Foundation and our critical work, and I'm grateful to be working with them each and every day. So on now to the program. Education is the cornerstone of each and every life that we come in contact with, from our young people, those that are pursuing undergraduate degrees and postdoc, whatever it might be. But it's our K through 12 students that the organization, the Everglades Foundation, has invested in over these last number of years. And we're seeing great results, great success as it relates to Everglades literacy. Quite frankly, the program started right in Collier County about 5 years ago. Lake Park Elementary and our friends there, Christopher Marker, the principal, and the staff and students at Lake Park were pioneers in the desire to have a curriculum, an Everglades curriculum, come into the classroom, and they embraced it. And many countless other schools across our state are embracing it each and every day. Our team is led by a tremendous director, Jennifer Diaz, you'll meet in a moment. But I want to introduce first our special guests with us. First, Veronica Mamone is the coordinator of elementary science and environmental studies for Collier County Public Schools. Veronica plays an integral role in supporting the Everglades Literacy Program in Southwest Florida. She led the efforts to help designate the first Everglades champion school in Collier County in 2017, something we're very grateful for her work on. In her current role with the school district, Veronica works to connect Collier County schools with the Everglades Literacy Program, and we're grateful for her work on that each and every day. We're honored also to be joined by Felipe Campano. Felipe is a senior at Ransom Everglades High School. Felipe serves on the Ransom Everglades and Sustainability Council and has enough time to also be on the crew team. Felipe is the chair of the Everglades Foundation High School Advisory Committee, a committee that has been recently constituted to ensure that our high school students around Florida are supported by these lesson plans and this curricula. And we're grateful that Felipe has stood up in a leadership role to lead this advisory committee. I mentioned Jennifer Diaz. She's our Director of Education. Jennifer previously was in the classroom as a teacher in 2014. Prior to that, she was in the classroom. And in 2014, we were honored that she joined us, and she's been leading this effort ever since. And we're grateful for Jennifer. We have a great moderator today, our very own Bianca Casuto. Bianca is the Education Program Manager at the Foundation. Her role is critical as she manages teacher trainings, school participations, and other Everglades literacy efforts throughout this statewide program, now in 22 school districts across Florida. Again, I'm grateful you're with us here this afternoon, and let me now turn it over to Bianca. Bianca, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Eric. Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for that wonderful introduction as well. We are really excited to showcase the Everglades Literacy Program and our impact in Southwest Florida today. I'd like to begin by talking first about the Everglades Literacy Program and what it is. So our program is a free education program. It is K-12, it is standards aligned, and it is implemented throughout multiple school districts in our state. We have been in 22 school districts and have had teacher trainings that have included over almost 3,500 educators. Our education team supports every educator in their initiative to implement Everglades education in the classroom. Today, we have an opportunity to hear directly from educators and students about the importance of Everglades education. The name of our education program, as you've heard us mention a few times, is the Everglades Literacy Program. And that program allows students and teachers to be literate in the Everglades, which means gaining knowledge about the Greater Everglades ecosystem and being able to communicate about it within the school and the community. Our program ensures the sustainability of a restored Everglades through empowering the next generation of conservation stewards by investing in teachers to drive cultural change within schools for the benefit of both local and ecological communities. Everglades Literacy continues the mission of the Everglades Foundation in order to protect and restore America's Everglades through education. Some of the pictures you saw on the screen before included opportunities that teachers and students have had while participating in the Everglades Literacy Program. Our work in the Southwest Florida area has been going on for over 5 years, as Eric just mentioned. To date, our impact in the area has included over 360 trained teachers from 77 different schools, with 1 champion school designated in Collier County. Our commitment is to provide teachers and students with resources, tools, and skills they can use to shift their schools and communities towards a better understanding of the Everglades and taking action to protect it. We are continuously growing our program in the area, and we are looking forward to increasing both our impact and our champion schools over the next year. Whether educators and students are in the traditional or virtual classroom, our program offers continued support. On the screen, you have a couple examples of this continued support that we are offering. This includes free standards-aligned K-12 Everglades curriculum, over 36 distance learning resources created to support virtual learning, one-on-one support, virtual teacher trainings, virtual classroom presentations, and even virtual Everglades experiences, including 360-degree interactive videos. All of this and more can be found on our newly updated website, www.evergladesliteracy.org. We encourage you to explore our website for both Everglades education resources as well as how to stay connected with us. Now that we have taken the time to introduce the program, we are ready to begin our panel discussion. We have an exciting panel joining us today. We are joined by Jennifer Diaz from the Everglades Foundation, Veronica Mamone from Collier County Public Schools, and Felipe Campano from the Everglades Foundation's Student Advisory Committee. Thank you all for participating today. I'd like to direct the first question to Jennifer. So Jennifer, if you could please tell us, why is Everglades literacy so important in the Southwest Florida region, and what are some of the goals the program has for there?
Thank you, Bianca, and nice to meet everybody. The Everglades Literacy Program was launched in Southwest Florida, actually. So we have a great story to tell when we talk about Southwest Florida, and particularly Naples and Collier County. With the great leadership of Principal Christopher Marker and amazing teachers like Veronica and Pam, it carries a legacy of Everglades champions. So they were the first champion school in the state of Florida. Veronica was one of the first teachers to be trained and implement the program in Naples. And I came on board in 2014, and our first education grant was from the Community Foundation of Collier County. At that time, our program had a goal of 3 counties, including Naples, and 100 teachers trained with 1 employee. It's really incredible to look back on that day. It was in the first month that I started with the Everglades Foundation, and just think about the gift and how important it was to grow and to sit here today and think about so many successes that we get to share with our partners and our teachers and our students. Today, again, we're at 21 school districts, over 3,500 teachers and growing, over almost 50 champion schools, and 6 incredibly talented staff that helps us to build the capacity to reach communities like Southwest Florida. You know, the program is about ensuring a sustainable restored Everglades by protecting it, by protecting South Florida's water supply for generations. So, you know, this program offers a unique opportunity where teachers, students, and communities across the state get to join forces on one mission: to restore, preserve, and protect our own backyard. You know, Florida's economy will always depend on clean water and healthy environments, such as the Everglades. And Southwest Florida plays an integral part in protecting our water, our wildlife, and our future. In terms of goals, we're growing an incredible network of robust K-12 programs, including scaling our kindergarten through 5th grade champion schools program to our middle schools. Pilot is underway throughout the state, and Golden Gate Middle School will be our pilot location for Southwest Florida. Welcome, Golden Gate. The Champion School program was designed to really take all the incredible work of a comprehensive curriculum, a research-based teacher training program, and move it into recognizing schools that demonstrate exceptional Everglades literacy efforts and initiatives that not just develop culture in their schools, but develop culture and stewardship within their communities. So it's really exciting to pivot that great work from elementary to middle school. And we've also launched a high school advisory committee made up of high school representatives from across the state. is to offer us a really great insight from different communities. Felipe will talk more about this. Elizabeth Stapp from Seacrest Country Day School is a representative on this committee. We're really looking forward to our next generation leading and really telling us, how do we build culture in these high schools? What do they see? What do they want? How do they want to communicate all the work that's happening and why it's so important?
Thank you for sharing that. We know that our impact is definitely present in the area, and of course being grown hopefully within the next year, in the school year that has just started. So I'd like to ask the second question to Veronica directly. Given that you have experience both in the classroom and now working at the district level, could you tell us a little bit about how the Everglades Literacy Program has impacted your role in both of those positions? And of course, feel free to share examples with us since you've communicated with so many about our program.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to clarify, I'm not from Florida. So coming from Texas to Florida, I had to learn a lot about the Everglades as well. And so when this opportunity came, I think Mr. Marker presented it to us. And so I jumped right on it because this program not only dealt with the Everglades, which is in our backyard, it's connected to our standards, which is very important when we're trying to teach our science content. So kids are mastering content in a way where they're learning about the need of the Everglades and how to conserve and protect and all of these things, which is vital for our kids to understand. So as a teacher, I was able to work with just a small group of kids, and we would go out, and I'm going to tell you, it's the 5th grade lesson with the hula hoops and their panthers, and it's the habitat loss, and it's such a great lesson because it interacts with the kids. It's hands-on. It's something they can connect to, because a lot of times when we're trying to teach life science, we can't connect kids to it. It's kind of hard. You can't just take them somewhere and show them something, or you're watching a video clip. This took kids outside pretending to be panthers, white-tailed deer, and shrinking and adding cars, and they're getting hit by cars. And it just really connected the kids to where we saw, as we continue to do these lessons, improvements in our test scores in the life science area. And I think a lot of it goes back to kids learning it from this. So a great connection there. And then after being a 5th grade teacher, I moved on to another school. So I went from being a classroom teacher to being an instructional coach at Palmetto Elementary, where now I was able to spread K-5 this Everglades literacy. And so that was another school. Then a couple of years ago, I took on the position of the coordinator. So now I'm in this position where now I'm reaching out to all of my elementary schools. We're sitting at 32 elementary schools now. We have 2 new ones, plus our Collier Academy. So, and Bianca was able to join us for our in-service. This was our first year where we were able to speak to K-5 teachers all about science. So I was able to get Bianca to come in to share it, and teachers are so excited to incorporate it because they understand the importance of the Everglades and what it means for our kids here to understand and what they can do as they grow older, because it is K-12. So we're starting them in kinder with learning about alligators and all the different little animals through habitats, survival as they move on. And so for me, now I have a bigger way to support our teachers with a product that allows them to teach their standards. So a lot of times teachers feel like they can't do things or help with certain things, like, oh, it doesn't really meet what we're trying to do. The Everglades Literacy Program meets it head on. It supports reading skills, social, there's all this stuff incorporated. So teachers are always up for wanting to use it, are excited to use it this year as well.
And we're honored always to work with you and all of the schools that you recommend to us. And so we just, we can't thank you enough for being that champion over there in the Southwest Florida region. You did touch on distance learning, which we know is very much a relevant thing happening right now across the state, across the country. So could you share a little bit about how our program has impacted teachers who are teaching through virtual platforms?
Yeah, so we have a variety. So we have our in-person people, and then we have Classroom Connect, which are on-campus teachers who have students virtually all day. They're coming into the school normal. And then we have eCollier, who's strictly asynchronous. And so what you guys have your distance learning that we've been able to share out. Now we are currently moving in. So we've aligned all of your lessons to our pacing. So we're just now getting into the life science in our 3, 4, 5. We actually don't hit that in primary until the spring. But what we've been able to do is, because you have that distance learning, it's enabled our teachers, because science and virtual is hard. Like, you're trying to do science virtually. It is not easy to get across and do. You're doing a lot of demos or this or that, but you guys have provided an opportunity to show teachers how it can be done effectively and kind of think outside, oh, that's how we can do that particular activity. So it's really provided them that resource to help in making that transition. So we're starting to see teachers use it because we're starting to get into that, that unit.
Well, we are absolutely striving to grow and provide the resources that teachers need as they also figure out what they need throughout this changing school year. So I'm going to shift gears actually and ask a question for Felipe. So Felipe, thanks for joining us today. We have two educators on the panel, and now we have a student perspective, which is really important, I think, to hear from as well. So Felipe, if you could kind of share with us a little bit about your interest in starting the Everglades Foundation Student Advisory Committee and why you think it's so important to both teach about the Everglades in school and, of course, learn about it.
Yeah, so of course, when I initially had reached out to Ms. Jennifer Diaz, I was intending to find some sort of internship, but then I talked to her a little bit more about what we could accomplish together, and I found out that we plan to do something more like an advisory council, which I find is much more like, it's helpful to a lot of people because I know that a lot of students across South Florida don't really have the resources to get involved with policy or learn about the Everglades hands-on, get out into the field and learn about it. And so I think that this council, on one hand, really, really helps those students to get the opportunities that they wouldn't otherwise have. At the same time, it also helps, as you said, to have student perspectives and to be able to communicate between the Everglades Foundation and the students that they're actually impacting. So I can be a mode of communication between Ms. Jennifer Diaz and between the students. I can help in this position to like get the students organized as well. And so I think it's really beneficial for the students to have something like this. And I think as a student learning about the Everglades, I grew up in South Florida, so I've been learning about it ever since I was in kindergarten, like you said, and thanks to efforts like the people here, I've been able to have a really good understanding of it. And so when I talk to students from other states who don't really have that, that background in learning about their environment, I always get shocked, like you guys don't know that much about your local ecosystem, and it reflects how they react to things like pollution, how they react to things like the death of their ecosystem, as opposed to South Florida students who really do have that understanding. I think it really helps them to get involved and to have the mindset of wanting to do something in the future. So you see a lot of students in South Florida really want to get involved with the environment and like get into the efforts of actually trying to keep the environment alive in the future. While you might not have that if you don't have that good understanding. So I think it's invaluable.
We can't appreciate your work enough. I really think that one of the most important questions that people want to know is how do you get people excited your age to participate in this group? What happened when you went to your fellow students and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Would you be interested in participating?
So yeah, Ms. Diaz asked me, who do you think you could get involved in this? And I looked into my contacts and I messaged every single person I knew. A lot of students were really, really excited. They were like, oh my God, what is it about? What's this opportunity? I try to tell them like, this is something that you can get involved with in your local community. It's going to be a panel of students from across the state, and they get really excited about being like involved in something larger than themselves, something that they can really make a difference. And they know that they're going to get that hands-on training from people like the Everglades Foundation. They have that resource at their fingertips to really get involved in their community. I think a lot of students want to get involved, they just don't really know how. So something like this is a great opportunity for them.
It's something that benefits you, your fellow peers in your school, and throughout the state, we have students in other counties who represent the student committee as well. But my question, I'm opening it up to everyone now, is if someone were to ask you, what the first thing to do in terms of implementing Everglades education or starting to talk about the Everglades with your fellow teachers or your fellow students, what would be one of the first things that you would say in the response to that question?
Veronica, do you want to go ahead?
I go to the website. I mean, that's a start. Since you guys have revamped the website for educators, that toolkit really gives a lot of background information and just gets that initial kind of answers a lot of those initial questions from a teacher standpoint of trying to understand how the lessons are laid out. You guys have done a really nice job with the update on the website and talking to people like me and Felipe.
Right.
Jennifer.
I would say that, these are there are these aha moments, you know, when you're training a teacher, or when you're talking to a community member, or when you're talking to high school students, that this is the only Everglades. It's America's Everglades, and it's our water supply. And so this is not negotiable anymore. We have to find a way to get a comprehensive education program into the system that educates every student, so that every Floridian, no matter if you're going to be an environmentalist or work for an environmental nonprofit, it's whatever you decide to do, that you are invested in your environment, because it directly impacts our economy, it directly impacts our livelihood. And so being invested in understanding that process is really important. And you know, that's the elevator speech, but there are these aha moments that just keep you going, that when the teachers look at you and say, oh, I didn't know that. This is so important. Why aren't we doing this? We should be doing this. And then when you walk into a classroom and you see students just engaged in these lessons, like I have never seen before. Kids are fascinated by their environment, fascinated by water and animals. And this program really lets us bring it to life and have fun with it. And you said hula hoops. I spent many a days in my car with a hula hoops and Play-Dohs. Yeah, in Play-Doh. But it's these materials that bring science to life in schools, and not just for the science teacher, for the PE teacher, right? And so in our trainings, we don't just have our science teachers, we have the entire staff engaged.
Exactly. Because I think, to play off that real quick, you know, our elementary teachers are not necessarily confident in their science teaching, right? They go to school, I'm an elementary, but I'm a reading teacher. That's what I do. That's my thing. So these lessons have provided, you guys have done such a wonderful job of creating lessons that give enough background information and that elementary style that really make teachers comfortable with teaching the Everglades, because it can be overwhelming when, like, I know learning, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was going on. Like, how do we get this like to their level? But what you guys have done in creating this, to get a kindergartner to start kind of understanding and see that progression from K through 5th to where they're on survival and like habitats and invasive species and all of that, like, you've made it a way to make it easier for teachers to feel comfortable about teaching science, which is hard sometimes.
Mhm.
So with that, all of those examples that you just shared, I myself have experienced walking into a classroom and telling a group of young students, you know, where do you get your water from? And when no one is able to answer, we can really see why our program comes into play and how important it is to really teach those resources. So Felipe, I'm wondering if you have any examples of you or your peers who have gone home and educated their families, their parents, or even maybe some fellow friends about what they've been learning through the student advisory committee.
So we haven't had too many opportunities to really get into the education just yet, but I know that a lot of students did learn a lot through the Everglades 101, where we learned about the movement of water. I know a lot of students are really excited to learn about how the water moves through the state and how it impacts the environment. I know, like, for example, like you see the fish kill, a lot of students are really interested in that and interested in why that happens and how they can prevent that in the future. So to learn about where the water comes from, they went home and they talked to their families about it. I know a lot of students want to start talking to their schools about how they can change their water usage or change the amount of runoff from their school, for example. I think these things are, they take those to heart and they bring those with them.
I like that you just said that they take it to heart, because I really do think that there is an emotional connection to learning about your environment and becoming a steward for it.
Yeah, and a lot of them also really want to help their future. I think a lot of high school students specifically, they recognize the urgency of it and they really want to get involved. And so this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't just sit at home and assume that things are going to get fixed on their own. We have to be part of the solution. So it's quite impressive that you have such a young group of students like yourselves who are championing those efforts across the state. I'm going to direct the next question back to Jen, and I'm going to ask Jen, can you tell us a little bit about what our goals are for the next year in terms of recruiting some more champion schools in the Southwest Florida area and just really raising more awareness about our program?
Absolutely. So as the pandemic hit us, you know, we found a little bit of a silver lining in some hard times, and that we were able to connect with teachers and students in a whole different way. And that our website allows us, and our communication tools allow us to reach large numbers of families and students and teachers. And so we are building a initiative. We are growing our Champion Schools program. And so we are lucky enough, and we have such great support from donors, and we were able to hire somebody, to a full-time Champion Schools person. And so Alicia Torres is leading the effort in building this Champion Schools program. And so, you know, Champion Schools program has been an invitation only. And now we have the capacity to not just invite, but to allow all schools who want to join this Champion Schools to join it. And offer those opportunities, not just to be recognized for their work, but support them one-on-one and to get them out into the environment when it allows us to get back out there. Our high school team is going to be huge in the development of our reach and communicating the efforts in our community. And so we're super excited about that. And then our middle schools, our middle school has, I think we're up to almost 13 to 15 pilot schools. And so we're going to take all of those middle school lessons and we're going to move that into a Champion School program. And we're excited to see what they get to do. You know, it's really cool to start talking about not just certain areas, you know, about how our entire state communicates these efforts and how we're just working together as an education community, students and teachers and schools, about how do we lift this message and how do we protect for perpetuity, forever, right? Because we're working on the restoration and we're working on the science, and now we really need to make sure that we're protecting it for future generations. And Felipe is going to be critical in that. Veronica, educators are critical in that message. And so what we're looking for is huge growth over the next, I mean, potentially 50 years, right? But over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be really big for our program. We've got a lot of investment in our education community, and we just can't wait to see what happens over the next couple of years.
We're excited to watch that growth, of course, through the support of people like Veronica who are at the district level. So Veronica, could you share a little bit with us your strategy in sharing our program and really getting teachers to dedicate themselves to the program to last not only for just a week or two while they're teaching about the environment, but how they can really incorporate it throughout the entire school year?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I was at Lake Park and we were the first, I didn't realize we were the first champion school, so yay for us, but we're the only champion school as of right now. So a lot of that came from, we had some different coordinators in this position, and then I was able to step in, and I am a K-5 coordinator, so I can focus on those elementary schools. And so right now, to bring you guys into our professional learning, we got reconnected last year. I know there were a couple schools who were working on it, then the pandemic hit, but you know, we have science coaches at about 10 of our schools, and so they're a big push to help continue that out and to get that champion schools, because we do want to get some more of those. But one of the biggest things is we've incorporated into our curriculum guides. I mean, we expect that you use the lessons because they're aligned, and it's what we need to do to help educate our kids, right? So they're easily accessed for our teachers. We're pulling your distance learning things to support as well. So we build exemplar units for our teachers to use if they choose or not, but we kind of build them out. And we, of course, are incorporating those lessons. So I just got done doing 5th grade. So fishy business and shrinking hat, like all of those are incorporated and easily accessed so that teachers know. But I think when you guys were able to come and speak to our K-5 teachers, their feedback alone of just listening to Bianca, because they've heard about it over the years, it's always been kind of hit and miss, but now to have somebody in a position who is a supporter of the literacy program and wants to see this out there with students, because I know the importance of what this means for us down here. So they're on board. So the feedback, oh, I can't wait, because we're also going to be planning the virtual training as well in the future. But I think that has just opened up, and me being in this role, I can kind of support schools as well, because I do support all the elementaries, and I remind teachers and get things out to them. So I see it growing, and just being a part of their everyday. Anytime they're talking life science, you know, we always try to connect to Florida, because that's what our standards are based on, our Florida things. And so it's Florida plants, it's Florida, you know, habitats. So the Everglades, when we're like, oh, let's go look at the Everglades. They know they have all the habitats. Let's go look at what they are. What are the animals we need to be talking about? We'll go to the Everglades, right? So it's just a great resource for us. And it's just getting it out there for our teachers and just keeping that part of our conversation and our planning pieces throughout the year.
Veronica, we thank you for that. That's such an important point, because when I started this, I was born and raised in Florida, right off of H Street, right off of the Everglades. And I was like, who doesn't know about the Everglades, right? And so when I started this, I was like, whoa, a lot of people do not know about the Everglades. And in particularly, just, simple things that we don't think about, that all of our kindergarten students, when we're piloting this lessons and we're teaching them, they could name every Arctic, they could name polar bears, and they knew what a ring-tailed lemur was specifically. But when I showed them cards of the Florida panther and the black bear and the purple gallinule, they couldn't name them. And so the teachers were calling me, Jenny, please put the names of the organisms on the cards, where kids don't know what they are yet.
Well, teachers don't know what they are. Like, they're even a little, because we did the activity with teachers with the different, like, you had to determine the Everglades, like, animals and which ones were not native to the Everglades, and teachers were confused a little bit. So because they're not always native to Florida themselves, they're transplants as well. So they're learning. So they learned so much, and we're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. But it's that same idea. Thank you for putting the names of everything, because I needed them too. I'm from Texas. We don't have things like that out there. We have bobcats, okay, not panthers.
I think one of the most rewarding parts of working in environmental education is that you can really see when the light bulb goes off on whether you're communicating with a teacher, an administrator in a school office, and students more than any other group, when they can make that connection as to what is part of their backyard or where their drinking water comes from, and even important things like the economic connections of having the strong economic connections of having clean, accessible, fresh drinking water or fresh water for different industries. It's a holistic, educational, comprehensive approach that we are using. So one of my questions that I'd like to open up to everyone is if you've had a rewarding moment or a rewarding feeling where you really knew that this, teaching about the Everglades or being part of environmental education was something that you knew you wanted to put your mark on.
I can start. I started as a career transfer from the medical field into teaching. And my first year teaching, we didn't have a science curriculum. There was no such thing. You just kind of had to find your stuff and figure it out and teach tracking hurricanes for 6 months, right? There's not necessarily anything that tells you that you should be teaching about your environment. But really laminated that idea was when I started working at the Everglades Foundation. And I'll never forget the story of the young man whose mom had to physically bribe him to get him on the bus to go to the Everglades because he was terrified, and he was doing a camping trip. So he was going from Orlando down to Everglades National Park, and his mom bribed him, just straight out bribed him to get on the bus and go to the Everglades because she knew it was going to be such an experience for him. He had been learning about all of this in the classroom, and now it was time for him to connect with it. I went along with that trip, and we went sluice logging. As you can imagine, this is a young man in 3rd grade who's terrified of the Everglades, who we're now getting sluice logging into the Cypress Dome. On our way out of the Cypress Dome, he looked at me and I said, "So, how do you feel?" "It's the best day of my life." That's it. That is it. It's how we're connecting, how we're inspiring a new generation, the next generation, of hope for our state, hope for our Everglades. And so that was my day. That's it forever. It's environmental education.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. So so when I was at Lake Park and we did the lessons in 5th grade, we decided that we were going to create a swamp walk to go along with it. And so we went to Fakahatchee Strand. And so, a lot of people might have an idea of what kind of students go to Lake Park, but we have a lot of students who have never been to the beach, even though it's like a few miles away, let alone the swamp. Okay, so he was not a very tall 5th grader, but we go out to the swamp. The kids are way excited because now we've done all the Everglades stuff. I even did some of the lessons that are the other grade levels to make sure we were all aware of kind of everything, right? So we go out to the swamp and we're doing the swamp walk. And I kid you not, we went in November. I mean, the water on me, I'm 5'9", so it was like my ankle, right? But for this little boy, it was like up here, like at his chest, and he's looking around. He's like, oh my gosh, I've never done this before. This is the coolest thing. Is this what we're trying to save? And I was like, you know what? We are. This is it. This is what it's like. Like, these are the trees. And we got to see the different trees. And I think there was a water moccasin that we had to avoid. Like, it was but it was that moment, like, he had never seen the environment in real life like that. And to get him out there, like, he would continue to talk about it months later about how great it was. So it's that kind of impact because it's not only was he out there in it, but he knew about it already. So he understood better when we were there. So it was just the greatest thing. It was fun.
I really appreciate that example, because I think that our Everglades Literacy Program does a really great job at bridging classroom learning with then going out and experiencing the Everglades in person. So Felipe, my question to you is, do you think that you can get your student committee to take a trip out to the Everglades and get to experience it in person?
Yeah, so I definitely think they're super interested in that. You know, I go to Ransom Everglades, and we do this thing called Outward Bound, which is when we spend 5 days paddling around the Everglades in canoes. You know, like, kids do get excited about that, and they really they like to get their hands dirty. And I mean, the people that are on this committee, they're really excited about working with the Everglades. They want to see it in person. They want to go out, because some of them don't have schools, like, they're not at schools that take them out to go to the Everglades and to the water and see it in person. So I think they're when they're at this age when they can actually, like, get into it and start exploring and not hold the teacher's hand, you know, they're really excited. And I think it's like to go out into the Everglades is an eye-opening experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we strive for, is making sure that students can have those connections both in any classroom or virtual setting, and just be able to take home the same message to share with their family and their friends. So I'd like to take a moment to remind attendees that we do have a Q&A panel or portion. So if you have any questions, you can definitely submit them on there and we can read them aloud to the audience. But in the meantime, we do have one question to answer, and that is, how can I share this program with my child's school? So Jen, I think you should probably answer that one.
Sure. We have a team waiting to support, one-on-one support. The best way is to go to evergladesliteracy.org, and there's Get Engaged. Right there is where you offer a click away from having somebody reach out to you. Also, our staff is ready, and so you can always reach out to us. And our follow-up email will make sure you have all of our contact information. But evergladesliteracy.org is really the best place to go, because it's where you learn and have access to everything. Again, because of the incredible support we have for this program, everything is free. Everything we do. These teacher trainings, the materials we provide, the student trips, we're supported through that. And so, you know, that's another huge gift to our state that the foundation and our supporters can give, is providing all this material and one-on-one support for free. And so get in that Get Involved tab, and right there you'll see that one-on-one support, and one of our team members will answer within less than 24 hours.
Yeah, we work really hard to make sure that we are continuously offering that support to both teachers and students alike. I love communicating, you know, top down, bottom up, it doesn't matter. One of the most rewarding parts for myself personally is going home and knowing that I could have potentially taught somebody a new piece of information that they could, you know, hold in their hearts and in their minds for the rest of their lives, and that it could potentially positively impact the environment. So when I talk to students and I tell them, you know, the specific reasons why it's important to save water, well, yeah, absolutely, because our water is directly below us, and we're fortunate enough to have that source. We don't have to bring in our water from somewhere else like many other places in the world do. So we have to learn about the environment in order to be able to take care of it. And we know that we have a lot of support from our school districts, our principals, obviously our board of directors, our Everglades Foundation staff, and a panel like this, I think, is the perfect opportunity to really reiterate. So we actually do have one question here from the Q&A. So this one is directed to Felipe. Felipe, do you feel your learning about the Everglades and being exposed to the literacy program will help you as soon as you are eligible to vote?
So I actually just did turn 18, so I am definitely voting mostly based on the environment. I'm a kind of a one-issue voter in that sense. Yeah, I do think that this program really helps me, especially because I know I'm someone that's communicating to a lot of people. I'm involved in several different councils across Miami-Dade, so I'm relaying this information to a lot of students. And so I think this does help me and the other students on the council get informed and really learn about what we're actually voting for, what we're trying to represent, and also learning about the policy, which we're about to do this Thursday. It really helps students to internalize that and to remember the information that they're taking to the polls.
And do you think that learning about the environment helps you make day-to-day decisions that, you know, are supportive of environmentalism?
Absolutely. I also just took an AP Environmental Science this last year, and it taught me so much. This literacy program has taught me so much already. I'm taking that into every day. I'm changing my behaviors, whether it's turning off lights or working with like using less water or educating my parents about proper diets, things like that, they really affect my everyday life.
Absolutely. And I think that it doesn't matter your age. That can be something that you experience K through 12. We know we have little kids, little kindergartners who go home and tell their parents to turn the sink off when they're brushing their teeth, right? Save that water in any way possible. We do have one more question for Veronica, and then I think we can go ahead and wrap up after that. But Veronica, if you had to tell your colleagues at the school district about this webinar, what would you tell them? How would you encourage them to think outside of the box and embrace this program and making a difference?
You know, I think to share this with others outside of, Collier is important. And I think letting them know, because ultimately we need to educate our kids. They're the ones living down here that this is going, I may not be living here in 10 years, but they can be. So we need to educate our kids and the importance of them understanding the Everglades and their role in protecting and conservation. And so opening up their mind. And I think a lot of teachers are open. They just don't have, education right now is hard. They have a lot on their plate, and you guys have been able to provide a distance learning aspect that is going to help teachers. And so your training alone is so interactive, and when teachers walk away, they get it, they understand it, they understand where the resources are and how to better implement those with their kids. So I think just encouraging them to reach out and ask questions, and whether it's myself or you guys, I think if a teacher attends your training, I've had teachers tell, now you guys do it all for free. You give those, it's one of those things that it's a win-win. But I've had teachers who goes, I would have paid to go to that, because they walk away with so much more, because yes, they're learning what to do with their kids, but they're learning as teachers what they can do. I know I've changed, just like Felipe, like the way I do. I have a 2.5-year-old, and we're learning that we cut off the water when we're brushing teeth. Okay, we're not leaving it on the whole time. Okay, we don't need it till we rinse. Stop wasting the water, right? So it's just little things like that, to teaching them just at 2.5 what to do. So I just encourage them to reach out, ask questions. And I think most teachers want to support kids in their learning, and they want to help them what's going to benefit them. And so I think they just need to reach out.
Well, thank you all for your input, your perspectives. I think it's a really wonderful opportunity to hear from different people who are part of the program. And again, just reiterating the point that Everglades issues are statewide issues. They are national issues. We are called America's Everglades for a reason. And educating and learning about the Everglades is very important. It helps us make better informed decisions. It helps us reduce environmental risks that we have in this unique and fragile environment. And it also helps us protect America's Everglades for future generations. And that includes all of us here with our family, our friends, and our neighbors, our community, right? It's really what it's all about. So thank you to the panel for participating today. It's been an incredible opportunity to get to know and hear a little bit more about your thoughts. We really welcome the opportunity that you presented us today. So thank you again. And I would really, I'm going to pass the mic over back to Nikki so she can wrap us up.
Thank you. And I have to, again, just say thank you so much To all of our participants today, Felipe and Veronica, thank you guys so much for taking some time out of your busy days to join us. It was really wonderful information that you provided. And of course, thank you to Bianca and Jennifer. I hope you all enjoyed today's presentation. I know I did. And if we were in a room, I'm sure you would be getting a standing ovation. So a round of applause for you. I hope you will all also join us for the second and third edition of our Southwest Florida Speaker Series on October 27th. We will have a wonderful presentation, science-based discussion from Dr. Steve Davis from the Everglades Foundation and Dr. Mike Parsons from Florida Gulf Coast University. We will then on Monday, November 16th, have a discussion on advocacy and hear a lot about post-election from, our wonderful Shannon Estenos from the Everglades Foundation, retired Colonel Charlotte Roman from the South Florida Water Management District, and also the U.S. Representative Francis Rooney. So we can't wait to hear more about our other areas of work here at the Everglades Foundation in helping us to protect and restore America's Everglades. Thank you again so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a wonderful evening.